Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more. Call us right now for more help at 866-945-8070. Record. And we're going to go live on Facebook. We are going to get this party started. We're going to get it started. Everybody stretch. Sarah, I saw you stretching. Let's see. We're going to share this on my Facebook page. On Enterprise Inc. We're going to go live. And we're going to go live someday. Here it comes. Someday. I'm in a singing kind of mood this morning.
On this Friday the 13th.
Oh, it is Friday the 13th.
That's how you know it's tax season, when you don't even realize that it's Friday the 13th.
And you're singing.
It's going to be a long weekend.
Are you done yours, Dennis?
No, I always do mine in October.
All right, almost there. Hold on. Just some logistics. This time I'm going to say zoom in. Instead of talking about myself in the third person, I'm going to say zoom in with me and my friends.
So when did you get back?
Hold that thought. And we're live. Good morning. Happy Friday. It's Friday the 13th. We are like a hair away from the end of tax season. And I know you're all done with your taxes because we're all very organized and our clients are very good about getting us stuff. So I'm glad to see that you're all able to just kind of relax and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah,
I kid. So Dennis, I'm going to answer your question right before we went live. I actually got back at 6 a.m. Monday morning, but here's my secret. I don't tell anyone the truth about when I'm coming back. I told everyone I'd be back on Wednesday, and that just gives me that extra 2 days to kind of recoup, especially from a trip as far around the globe as that, where you really need the time to recover. And especially since the flight I took left at 1 a.m. their time and landed at 6 a.m. our time, and I've gotten smart about it. This was actually, I didn't realize this was the 4th year that I went to Israel for the Passover holiday. And so I've learned a thing or two, and I've developed habits based on that.
Which way do you go? Do you go across the Pacific or across the Atlantic?
It goes across the Atlantic. It flies up north, actually, into Canada. And so it stays over land mostly and then comes down Europe and into the Middle East.
Oh, okay.
So kind of
I think they call that something like the Great Circle or something like that. It's actually shorter that way.
Yeah, I guess this way, if God forbid the plane did go down, it's not down in the middle of the ocean where nobody like a smart idea. But yeah, so I got back early Monday. Another thing I've learned to do over the years that's smart is I immediately unpack. As exhausted as I am, I get back to the house. First, of course, I spend some time with my dogs who, it's funny, if you've had dogs, you know about this. They actually punish you when you've been gone for a little while. So they act like they're not excited to see you and they just want to come out. And then a few minutes later, they come back and start, giving me all kinds of love. And it's almost like, okay, we missed you, But after I got over that initial thing, I, unpacked immediately. And then I kind of wanted to do some stuff on Tuesday. So I spent the day Monday cleaning out my inbox. I just knew if I cleaned out my inbox, I would feel good about it. And this way, Tuesday, I could focus on either relaxing or, in my case, I wanted to get some content done, actually. Wait, I'm reading the comments in the chat. When you move, it's Sarah. Oh, that's right. That's the roses. Very nice. So anyway, back Monday. Tuesday, I actually spent the day producing content. I pretended like I was still away. I didn't really answer any emails or anything, and or Slack messages. It's funny how now that's evolved. I do very little correspondence via email. Almost all of my communication now is done in Slack, and I love that. So still excited about the new changes coming out in Gmail. I posted the article yesterday in Between Wall and Main, the strategy forum. So you can see that, and you can see they give some screenshots. They're giving Gmail a similar kind of overhaul to what they've been giving all the rest of the Google products, Calendar and stuff. So they're going to, I'm sure, continue evolving and rolling out and making the platform consistent across all experiences. They're also deprecating some of the services that we've had sort of built into Gmail. Instead, you'll have to go get some add-ons to do some of the same things. I'm not 100% sure exactly what they're referring to there. I suspect it's like if you use Gmail on your mobile, it gives you these automated replies that you can hit. And it's funny, I have some clients who are savvy to this, and like I'll send one of those replies to somebody, and the client will send me back saying, hey, you just botted me, meaning you used the bot to reply. And so now that's a thing, like you botted me. Like it was kind of funny.
I have a question on Slack versus email. I mean, do you run in your CRM, do you combine them, or can you do a Zapier to transfer
No need. No need. I use Nimble CRM. So if I want to see the correspondence that way, I just go into your contact profile in Nimble and I can see the history like we saw last week with John, right? If I need to just see, hey, what have Dennis and I emailed about? But outside of that, no, the beauty of doing it all in Slack is that I have channels that organize the subject matter. So when I'm looking for something, I just go in there and look, okay, this is what we discussed about banking, or this is what we discussed about accounts receivable. I have my channels organized according, and initially largely according to the balance sheet, right? So that's,
But does Slack get transferred to Nimble?
No, I don't need it to.
Oh, okay.
I don't need it to, because again, everything that I need is in Slack is there in Slack, and that's just where I go. I don't, because the stuff in Slack is very contextual already. That's the whole point of it, right? I have a Slack workspace for a client. Within that, I have channels for each, subject matter that I need to discuss with that client. I have a client who this week, started applying for loans. So I created a Slack channel called Loan Apps. So we have the discussion about the loan apps there. He used this one service. They gave him a terrible interest rate and deal. So I said, go use Fundera. And he did. He filled out his app on Fundera. And so this way, when he has questions like, how should I report my income? Because it's not clear and straightforward. He's got 3 different companies. He takes distributions. They're all S-Corp, so he runs some payroll. But if we just give the reported payroll as his income, it's understated. It's not his real income. So I had, these are things that clients don't necessarily understand that I explain. We take your payroll plus the net income of the S-Corp, add that together, that's your income, because that's what you're paying taxes on at the end of the day. So things like that, are reserved for Slack. And that way, when he has a question about something having to do with the loan, I just go in and look at the loan app channel in his Slack workspace, and I can review the correspondence. And I love using the star feature in Slack because I can just start conversations as my to-do list. So if there's something I know I need to follow up on, but I'm not going to do it right now, I star it. And then when I have the time, because the way I function, I don't know, maybe this is different than what other people do. I have an appointment on my calendar for when I'm going to work on that client. The calendar appointment doesn't have a lot of details. It just says work on so-and-so's stuff, right? And it might be a 2-hour block or a 4-hour block, whatever I think I need. When the client is newer, I'll often give them a whole day every week at the beginning just to get the onboarding done smoothly. I often don't need all that time, but I reserve it. This way I have it if I need it. If I don't, I always have plenty of other things to do. So, then when I get to that day where I have to work on them, the first thing I always do, and we just covered this in our 97 Up webinar that I did on managing your project management. It's not what you use, it's how you use it. So the first thing I do is I open up Active Collab, because that's truly command central for every client that I work on, right? But I'm also going to have their Slack workspace open. And then from within Active Collab, I have the really tasks that I'm using in a task list called Reference, where I have links to the different services where information is contained about that client, such as their Google Drive folder or their Smartsheet workspace. Usually I have both. So I open up Slack. From there, I have access to everything else. So get that webinar. Members of 97 Up get all the webinars for free, which makes sense after you've paid for like 2 of them. So that goes through that whole process that I'm talking about. And what I'll do then is I'll sit down and I'll have the tasks in Active Collab, and I'll also go through what I've starred in Slack. And as I complete the tasks, I just unstar them so I know I've dealt with them, right? And I'm often taking notes about what I'm doing as I'm doing the work, because then what I'll want to do is probably go back into Slack after I'm done, or when I'm going to stop for the day on that client, and I'll just write them a quick update in Slack, letting them know what went on today, what I did, reminding them if there's anything I need them to follow up with me on, which usually there is, and I might task them with things in Smartsheet. That's how I typically use Smartsheet with clients, is to collaborate and task them with things. And if I need to address an email, you can forward the emails into Slack. I've got a video on how to do that. You forward it into that Slack workspace. You get your own unique email address to forward to for that specific Slack workspace. When you forward it in, it shows up in Slackbot, and then from there you can share it into any channel. So I'll often do that. If that client sent me an email with a reply from one of the lenders, what I would do is forward that into Slack. It goes in Slackbot, and then from Slackbot, I'll share it right into the loan app channel, and then we can discuss the email right there. And that's also, by the way, how I force clients to get into the habit of using Slack, because in the beginning especially, they're so used to emailing that they just forget. So every time they send me an email, I redirect it into Slack and say, let's talk about this here, right? And so, again, I'm a big fan of strong-arming the clients, not in a bad way, in a way that forces them to get into the good habits that I've formed that I know make things run really efficiently, right?
Do you just eventually ask them if they're just fully resistant to Slack?
If they won't get into my systems, what will typically start to happen is things will slip through the cracks. And the first few times I'll tell them, look, this is why I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And eventually, if they don't conform, it's not working. I haven't had this experience yet, but I suppose I'll reach a point eventually if a client is totally uncooperative where I'll say, look, I can't help you because you're not willing to, the idea that and the mindset I have in going into a relationship with a client is that they're hiring me for my expertise, which means, in a sense, they're hiring me to tell them what to do when it comes to this stuff, right? I'm not going to tell a contractor how to do their construction job, but I am going to tell them how to manage the accounting and the information that goes with the accounting. I see so many accountants and bookkeepers describe situations, conversations they have with their clients, where it sounds like that script is completely flipped, and the client seems to be telling them what to do or how to do it. And that's not how it's supposed to work. Why do they hire you if they're going to be the ones telling you how to do what they hired you to do? It's like, do it yourself then, right? If you know so much, then do it yourself. So
I have a question. Can you use Zapier to automate the transfer of the email into Slack?
you could, but the problem you're going to run into is you have to create a rule that is not yet specific enough that you're not going to overwhelm Slack with crap you don't want, right?
Right.
So
I have a,
go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your sentence. I was going to say I have a question.
Okay, so I was just going to finish that thought by saying that I find it more efficient to take that Slack email address, put it into your email contacts, name it according to that client so you know whose Slack workspace is whose, and then just forward the emails you need. Again, as I'm training clients to get into Slack more and more, that comes up less and less often. I don't get very many emails that I even need to forward into Slack because I've got my clients very highly trained to just be in Slack. And in the end, they all love it. Every single one of them thanks me for forcing their hand on this because they all agree universally that life is much better now that they're using Slack instead of email. Go, Gina.
Do you have any idea when Google will be rolling out their changes?
It's not clear. From the article I read, they said it's
That's
just,
what I heard too.
Yeah, just about going into beta. And so it's anybody's guess now how quickly it'll roll out. And as they often do, they'll roll it out in pieces. So some people will get it. I usually what they do, strangely enough, is the free Gmail accounts get the rollouts first. I imagine because they care less about pissing those people off in case something doesn't work. And then the G Suite users get it last.
Well, the reason I'm asking is Sarah just showed me a program called Sorted, S-O-R-T with a D at the end. Yeah, it kind of looks like Trello meets your Gmail inbox. And I'm really interested to try it out, but I don't want to try it before a Gmail change.
Christy Monahan was using Yanadu, which seemed like that. It seemed to kind of do that. Sarah, no good on Yanadu? I can't hear you.
We got to hear you, Sarah. You're muted.
She's not actually muted, but for some reason she doesn't have audio. All right, we'll come back to you after these brief messages from our sponsors.
There are other responses on Facebook.
Oh, let
Kelly
me
Christian says, I agree. Bottom line is choosing a tool, Slack, and using it and getting the clients to use it as well where at possible. Okay.
Yep, all my emails that need to be handled, other than quick housekeeping, get sent into Asana as a task. So much easier now with the Gmail integration. Sarah Laidlaw says, we keep client conversations out of email and in Smartsheet. We export many Smartsheets a year at year end as we start the new sheets and include comments before inactivation. Getting a local record is important. And this is exactly what I was talking about when I did my webinar on it's not what you use, it's how you use it. Because any of these tools will work. You just have to create a system and a workflow around that tool that's going to work for you. And the bottom line is this. I can't sit here and tell you, no, you shouldn't use Asana, you should use Active Collab. I would never do that. In fact, one of the coolest things that I got out of that webinar, which I was hoping to get, and then it proved to be true, was that I made it very clear. I'm not telling you you have to use Active Collab. I'm only using that as the tool for illustration because that's what I've chosen to use. But I said right up front in the webinar, what I'm hoping you'll all get out of this is the generic layout that I'm applying within Active Collab. And I had several people in the webinar who said, yes, we are Asana users, and we're going to structure Asana the way you're prescribing, but using it in Active Collab. And I said, I'd love to get like a screenshot or something of what that looks like, because I know it'll make me really proud to see that somebody was able to take what I've taught them and use it in that manner. So I'm excited to get that back from people, actually. And
the intermission was good.
Huh?
I'm bad. Your intermission was good. So yeah, it lays over like Yana do, but I like how it lays over my email. You can toggle really easily between it, and it sets your tasks up in either grid and or similar to Active Collab. You can have the Kanban style thing. You can pick up and drag emails and put them in different like to-do, follow-up, progress. You can change the header names. I guess I would show you, Seth, in our 97 call, so I'm not publicly showing.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up, by the way. So this is one thing we can't do here that we do in our biweekly 97, not biweekly, twice weekly 97 up calls, is we share a lot of intimate information because it's an intimate group. So it's one of the major benefits is that we can go a lot deeper on subject matter because the group of people who are joined it's like a family. We all trust each other very much. So,
hey, Sarah, how do you spell that tool?
I am going to drop it in the.
If I understood correctly, it's sort, like sort my data, apostrophe D, correct?
No, just
no apostrophe, just with a D.
Yeah, and it's got like a little squirrel icon at the end. I happened upon it because it's so crazy. I was telling Gina this the other day. I've never been sold on the Gmail look. It's just not my style. And I've always searched for something that I like. I've tried Yonadu, I've tried a couple others, and I've never really accepted it. This one, I crossed my fingers. That's why I didn't say anything yesterday, Seth, I'm like, I try it out for a whole week and see if I really, really like it. Because if I stick to it for a whole week, I like it. Right. Otherwise, I'm like, ugh. But so far, it really helped me. And I've stayed on task with my to-dos based on it and my little other filters that I've created for myself. So.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's the only way to test any new tool that you want to try, is you have to test it on real live data. And, you know, I see sometimes it's the same people going into our Facebook groups and asking the same questions, and sometimes it's months apart, and I don't fault them for that. But what it leaves me wondering sometimes is, have they actually just dug in and tried something? And I'm guessing they haven't. I'm guessing they're waiting for somebody to tell them, hey, this is the tool, you have to use it, there's no other question, there's no other choice. And it's never going to work like that. You know, you have to find a tool and dig in, and you have to be willing to invest the time to learn everything that tool does so you can figure out how you can break it. And what I really mean by that is bend these tools and use them in ways they may not have even been intended to be used, but they're ways that actually help you get done what you need to get done. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. So if Sarah Laidlaw's process in Smartsheet is working for her, then that's the only answer to the only question that we need answered, is it's working for her, right? Alexa says, I'm liking Carbon for its email triage. Alexa, I'm curious if you don't mind chiming in the chat or wherever, how many employees you have? Because what I understand of Carbon, and based on what I've seen, I've had a few demos and I've talked to a lot of people using it, is that, first of all, it's cost prohibitive. And secondly, it's really only very useful if you have a larger team, that it's overkill for like a smaller firm where there's just 1 or 2 or 3 people. I've even had people at Carbon tell me that. So I'm curious, Alexa, what your use case is for Carbon if you have a larger team, and if that's maybe why it is working well for you. Because like I said, the feedback I often hear with Carbon is that it's overkill if you have a small firm. And so Alexa just responded and says it's just me. And you're not finding, I assume, that it's overkill, I guess, because otherwise...
Or too expensive.
Yeah, it's like $75 per month per user, and you have to pay for a whole year up front. Or maybe it's, I don't know if it's still $50 a month per user. Still, $600 a year up front is a lot of money for some people. So, and I remember when I looked into it, I needed at least 2 users, so it was going to be $1,200 up front. And I frankly didn't want to spend $1,200 all at once for something where I already felt I had a pretty good solution for. It would have been nice to maybe have Carbon in the mix, but it wasn't worth it to me for $1,200 to do that. You know, and that's what that came down to for me at the end of the day. So, but again, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's what's working for you. And if Carbon is making Alexa's life very easy, then it's probably worth $600 a year, you know, paid up front. Or maybe, you know, sometimes you can negotiate these things. When I signed up for WebGility, they wanted me to pay for, actually they took the whole year's worth up front out of my account. And I called back, I said, wait a minute, guys. You know, can we do something on a monthly arrangement on this? Because it's just a cash flow thing. You know, I don't want to take the hit all at once. I'd rather spread it out. So Alexa says, but I am building procedures. Yes, costly, but it seems to work for me better than others. So there's your answer. And again, that's all the answer you need. I think sometimes there's almost this subliminal sort of feeling when I see conversations in Facebook groups, like everybody has to prove that their choice of tool is the right one, you know, and that's just not the case. It's never going to be. And that's ego, quite frankly, you know, and we really have to learn to remove the ego from these things and learn that it's really about, you know, I love what I got back by way of feedback recently from my friends at meetedgar.com. I'd asked them a question in their chat, and it lent itself to a sort of feature suggestion. And when the guy wrote back to me, he said, look, this is a great suggestion. I can see where this would make life a lot easier. We're definitely going to add it into our list of things to consider. He says, at the end of the day, just be aware that we have to prioritize, but based on what's going to bring the greatest value to the most people. And I love that, because that's the way it should be. That's the way it has to be. What's going to bring the greatest? Because I see a lot of us also complaining sometimes. And we love to yell at companies like Intuit because we feel like they're big companies and we're not going to hurt their feelings maybe on some level, or maybe we don't care. But I see people who seem to love, certain people in particular seem to love like bashing Intuit, like, oh, this is a terrible, terrible company, you know. And really the reality is Intuit is, I believe, just following that formula. You know, so just because they don't deliver your feature as quickly as you'd like it, we have to remember to consider that maybe they have to consider what's going to bring the greatest value to the greatest number of people, right? And that's how they really have to prioritize. Let's face it, that's how they're going to win in the marketplace, right? So they have to prioritize based on what's going to, you know, they can't do everything all at once, obviously. So they have to prioritize, I'm sure, in a very similar, if not exactly that manner. So, Dennis, when you registered, you asked about how you could get more cloud-based or more technically proficient clients, right?
Well, what I'm doing right now is that on my website, I'm trying to screen out people that don't necessarily fit what I want to do on my About page.
Perfect. How are you doing that?
I talk about being a cloud accountant, that I'm not traditional, and that these are the advantages of working with the cloud accountant in terms of not having to travel in Seattle traffic and having more flexibility and being able to get a recording of the meeting so you don't have to, you know, I try to do Zoom meetings with clients and record them and then upload them to a Dropbox and then give them the link so that they have a record of it.
And a lot of people forget about that recording, and it is very valuable. I have found clients come back to me and say that they were really grateful that I did record it, because they've gone back and used it time and time again.
Right.
I've been doing it for years, and I put them in box.com, and we link up. Each session has a separate note in Active Collab in the notes area, and we link to the video there. So I train the clients to log into Active Collab, and that's their one portal with access to everything. But yeah,
and the other thing I do is that I'm in Toastmasters, and they record our speeches, and I did a speech on IRS audit, so I basically edited the file and just did the first 5 minutes of the my speech, and so I put the link to that so they could, so no one that doesn't know me could see who I am, get a sense of my personality and that kind of thing, that I'm a real person, etc. And one thing that Jill Woodard said that really resonated with me is that it says you market for the clients you want, not the clients you have. And so it's a way of that's what I'm trying to do now, is just try to not eliminate clients, or although some of the PETA clients I might keep raising the price, but just trying to replace the ones because there's normal attrition, in any business. And so try to basically market to like right now I'm trying to market to real estate agents and people that are property managers and have.
And how are you doing that?
I put that in my, my focus, that I have a focus on that. And then on my, I've got a testimonial page on my website, and I've been asking clients to rate me. And so I've got about maybe 7 or 10 pretty good ratings.
So you have a lot of stuff, it sounds like, that's designed for when people come to you. But what are you doing to bring those target audiences to yourself? Are you doing any advertising? Are you doing any content?
No, not right now. I'm so busy right now that, it'd be sort of counterproductive. I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I'm being very selective in who I'm taking on as a client, and I don't hesitate. If they look like they're going to be too big for me or I'll refer them on to somebody else. Right.
So it sounds like you have enough of a pipeline of people coming in that you don't really need to make any extra effort at bringing in those targets. You're just trying to filter those who are coming in and weed out the ones that the sort of demographic that you're looking for, which is
Exactly.
Great, because you've been doing this for a long, long time. Of course, for those of you who haven't or aren't quite as established, my strategy when I wanted to get more real estate brokers and agents was I produced a mountain of content on QuickBooks, and I wanted specifically talking about people when you're targeting not just the audience, but a specific group within that. I wanted to target people who are real estate brokers and agents who like or who either like to or want to use QuickBooks Online. So all of my content had, something along the lines of accounting for real estate with QuickBooks Online, right? Or how to enter a HUD-1 in QuickBooks Online. I made sure QuickBooks Online was in every headline, every title, so that it was very clear, and also something like real estate broker or real estate agent. So real estate broker or real estate agent, QuickBooks Online in every single title, different subject matters, right? Keep it narrow, go deep, give them a resource rather than just a simple superficial blog post. And that's what drives the traffic in. And now you're going to get very targeted traffic, because these are people who obviously I'm not going to get an engineering firm who's going to stumble on my blog post about accounting for real estate with QuickBooks Online. I'm not going to get an engineering firm coming in based on that and ask me to hire them, right? So it's, this isn't rocket science. It's not magic. It's just finding out and being really specific, right? The more specifically you can identify your target audience, sometimes we think it's counterintuitive because we're like, oh, we're not going to be targeting that many people. But the reality is you don't want to target a lot of people. Because I love what I've learned recently. Part of what we're doing in 97 and Up is every Thursday we're doing a book study on a book called How to Write Copy That Sells. And so it's a lot of, it's like the title says, it's how to write copy. It's how to create content that, as he says in the book himself, that grabs people by the eyeballs and sucks them in, right? And some people actually didn't do the calls initially because I said, well, I don't really have time to read the book. And I thought about it and realized, I said, you know what, join the calls anyway, because I guarantee you're going to learn a lot, just based on participating in the calls, even if you don't have the time to, because tax season, some people just don't have the time to sit there studying a book like we're doing. So anyway, everybody started joining the call. And one of the things that he says that I love, it struck me so hard when I read it. He says, if you try to target everyone, you may as well target no one, right? And I love that idea, because it's so true. If you try and just say, I want to target all small business owners, nobody's going to hear you. Nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to get your message. What we need to learn to do is sort of overcome that fear that we have that comes with thinking, oh, if I narrow the audience too much, nobody's going to call. No, what's going to happen is that smaller group of people is going to be so much better targeted and qualified that you're going to have a lot more people calling, and you're going to have a lot more very targeted people calling that won't waste your time, because they're people that you actually want as clients, and they're people who actually need what you offer, not somebody who misunderstood because you had this broad, vague message about what you do and who you do it for, right? So we need to be as specific as we can possibly be in targeting. So if you want to target high-tech clients, then you have to put content out there that's designed to attract high-tech clients, right?
Well, I have a CPA friend that says it's the onesie twosies that will kill you because you never develop an expertise in anything. And so you just, in order to become efficient, you need to be specialized.
Right. All right, let me go through some of the other questions. Greg, that's very sweet of you. Greg says, what would help me most is more time with Seth. You know what, Greg? Just for that, you get a free 1-hour session.
I want to piggyback on that.
Okay, you got it, Sarah. And you get a session, and you get a session. So, all right.
I love our group.
What?
I said I love our group.
Thank you. So, hold on. I'm just looking at the chat. I'm looking at comments here.
It's such a special group.
It's such a special group. Mm-hmm.
It is a special group. You know what? Let's. I wanted to do this actually at the beginning, but we kind of dug right into things. So, let me share my screen for a minute, because some people have questions, and the truth is, things have been evolving since I started. When I started, 97 and up, I had no idea what was going to happen. I honestly didn't. I had developed a plan for how I was going to focus on building a consulting side of my business. Up to that point, I'd always had consulting clients, obviously, but my primary focus was on training. And I said, I want to take what I'm teaching people, everything I've learned, and apply it in my own life and actually build a consulting business. And I thought about it. I said, why not document that journey and invite people to join for $97 a month? The number was kind of arbitrary. The truth is, I based on something else that I saw where this guy did this training series, and it was $47, and you got a video a day for 47 days. I thought, I could do something modeled similarly. And so the initial rollout of the 97-minute program, was based on, I said I want to do the same thing, but 97. So 97 videos in 97 days is what people would get. And that course is still being developed. I think we're into the 40s as far as the number of lessons. And the outline is nearly complete. I think I'm only maybe 11 shy of the 97 that I'm going to have when the course is complete. And the beauty of this is I can always go back and add appendices, and that's why I love the video web platform for stuff like this, because I don't have to go to the effort that others might have to go to publish a new edition of a book, right? I can just jump in. I can jump in tomorrow on a Saturday, record a bunch of content, and have it up on the web by Sunday and say, here's a newer updated, version or whatever. So that's one of the reasons I love the platform. So I created this, and I really didn't know what was going to happen. I could have totally failed. It could have turned out that I was better at teaching this stuff than actually doing it, and it could have failed, but it hasn't. Last year I had the best year I've ever had, and we have several members in our group now, including Sarah, I believe, who can attest to the fact that since they've been doing this and sort of following our program, that they've improved dramatically. I know Christy Monahan was first who kind of came in and said,
well, it's a confidence builder.
What's that?
You build your confidence. You kind of realize who you are and where your value is through the group.
But explain to people how that works, because otherwise it might seem unreachable.
Yeah. Well, I think that you see the potential. It's okay to dream bigger than you thought initially, which I can say that I did that. And I feel like what you do is you help us kind of look at our own situations and model it and sort of test through it and understand what we should we be charging, what we're comfortable with, what we agree to in our own minds to go forward with. And I feel like for me, what it's done is it's given me the okay to be like, yeah, I'm okay to be a little bit higher than somebody else, just because, you're paying for what's in here. You're getting more from me because
right.
You're in my little group, and I'm going to take care of you. Once you're in, you're in.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and what I think is cool that I've seen, and I'm not giving myself credit for this, I give the group credit, is that I've seen how you support one another. So I've seen Jesse is a great example, I think, of somebody who has really taken advantage of the resource. And I see Jesse going into Slack frequently and asking questions. And before I could even jump in and help, because it's a priority for me, you know, this is 97 and up. You guys are paying me for this. So I always make it a point to make sure that this is where I live, right? Before Facebook, before anywhere else. But oftentimes before I can even jump in and give Jesse an answer, you've answered his questions, or somebody else, or 10 other people have answered his questions. And it's a great group that way that provides, I think, a powerful resource for people. And, you know, in thinking about it, and like I said, based on the impetus, which was that I wanted to build a consulting firm and make a really concerted effort at it, not just what I'd done in the previous years, which is here and there along the way, people who'd seen my videos would ask me to consult with them and I would do it, more focused, more intentional, saying, I want to build this. I want to bring clients in. I want to do what I know how to do and do it really well. And quite frankly, I want to make a lot of money, right? So I said to myself, every book I've read, and I'm continuing to read books, we have a book study for that reason, because I keep learning more and more. Every podcast I listen to from every quote unquote successful entrepreneur, one of the almost universally consistent themes is they all say they read a lot. Every single successful entrepreneur. We're talking about people who are majorly successful at what they do. Guys like Richard Branson, guys like Tim Ferriss, Chris Brogan, Gary Vaynerchuk is probably the exception to the rule. He's the only one that says he doesn't read because he doesn't have time to. He's too busy hustling, right? But everyone else that I listen to says they read a ton. So reading is important to me. And so in reading everything I read, you know, you have to be intentional. You read a book like Think and Grow Rich, which if you haven't read that, please just read that already. It's so important. Because in there he talks about how you have to be specific as to the amount, and you also have to be specific about what you're going to give up in exchange for the amount that you're asking for, right? So based on that and all the other 10 million versions of that I've read and heard, I built a format for us around how to structure that. Right? I built a financial model that says, here are the services I'm going to offer. Here's how much I'm going to charge. And we all fill that out. It's the first thing you're told to do and instructed to do in the course, right? And as I was building that, I said, wait a minute, this is great because I can have this great financial plan that says I'm going to offer all these services at all these rates times the number of clients I expect to acquire each month, rolls up to a nice goal that I want to reach. But how am I going to accomplish that goal? And because what I thought about was, and the way my thought process evolved was that if I don't have a specific plan around how I'm going to organize my time also, I'll never be able to accomplish these goals, no matter how good the goals are, right? So what I realized was we needed a time management component into this. So I built that into the model, right? So having done that, I had developed the whole first section of our course. Right? Basically building your financial model that addresses the think and grow rich idea of, you know, being specific as to the amount and specific in terms of what I'm willing to give up in exchange for that amount. What am I going to do for that money? The universe doesn't give us money for free. We have to be willing to give something up. Another thing I read that I loved, I forget where this came from. I read so much stuff these days that sometimes I forget where I read it, but it was about the fact that, you know, there's a reason why a neurosurgeon gets paid what they get paid versus the person who's serving burgers at McDonald's. And what it really all comes down to is that the neurosurgeon is giving a lot more in value than the person serving the burger at McDonald's is. So, and the moral of the story on that was, if you want to make $1 million a year, you have to find a way to provide $1 million in value, right? It's really a simple formula that way. You have to provide $1 million in value. And in order to do that, you may not get to keep it all because you might need to hire some people and pay them. And what I learned from reading The 1 Minute Millionaire was that one of our intentions needs to be at the heart, at the core of what we do, the idea, the notion that I'm not going to go out to make myself rich. I have to set out to make others rich. And if I set out to do that and I accomplish that, along the way, I'll make myself rich, right? So the first priority has to be to find ways to make other people wealthy. So that was a really interesting spin on things that seemed to really change how I thought, literally how I thought, 1 minute to the next, the way millionaires, you know, have learned to think. They think differently than the rest of us do. That's why they're millionaires, right? It's a different thought process, the way they do things. And so I built the plan around that. And so things have evolved. So I want to share my screen actually and show you a little bit. You know, when people sign up for 97 and up, there's a couple things that are going to happen. You're going to get an email that describes all the places you need to go to access what you need to access. Most people don't read that stuff. They get the Slack invite. They come into our Slack workspace, and they ask me, hey, where do I go to find the course? So it's like, you know, and I've learned that, okay, I get it. I'm guilty too. I don't always read these emails that I get. So I'm going to create probably an orientation video and hope that maybe people will click a link and watch a video. Otherwise, I'll just keep answering, because the beauty of having the Slack workspace, and I tell people this, is if you have questions, it's not like the Fight Club, right? Remember the movie Fight Club? The first rule of Fight Club is nobody talks about Fight Club. Well, this is the opposite. The first rule of Accounting Business Academy is everybody talks about Accounting Business Academy. But all kidding aside, the beauty of this is if you don't know how to find something, you just go into Slack and ask. Right? And I actually created this About ABA channel specifically to create a place where people can go and say, hey, Seth, where do I find XYZ? So now let's answer that question a little more specifically. I'm going to go over to my website. All right, and just in case, because I always lose my mind and forget, I am sharing my screen, right? You can all see it?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so two main places people go. One is, first of all, the 2 weekly calls that we do. Let's start with that. That's under podcasts, and it says right here, 97 and up episodes. If you happen to go into the Zoom in with Seth David calls, which is what we're doing here today, sort of a crossover between the two, you will also find it on the left under podcast, 97 and up episodes. Right? So every call we do every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific gets recorded and thrown up on here. I am admittedly behind on posting them. I am working on getting them caught up. So this is the first place. So what I tell people is just bookmark this link to the 97 and up episodes. But I also, every time one gets published and put on the web, back in Slack, we have a channel for episodes. I have a lot of channels in here. Episodes. And so in the episodes channel, as you can see, I always post the link and the title every time a new episode gets published. So I try to make it really easy for people to find and access this stuff. So that's the 2 weekly calls. And the impression I've gotten, funny enough, my original intention was that, and this is interesting because now I'm also studying the Lean Startup as a book, and he talks about this kind of stuff, that what you think is going to be your customer's behavior is often not going to be their behavior. It's often, you're going to learn a lot because you're going to see them behave very differently than you expected. And then you as an entrepreneur have to learn to sort of pivot around that and say, well, based on my customer's behavior, I need to offer something different. I need to adjust, right? So my expectation was everybody would just dive into the course. Turns out the impression I'm having now is that most of the people in our program are in it primarily for these calls that we do twice a week. Some come in to the live calls every time. Others get the recordings once they're up. So I posted on the episodes. Now the other thing, of course, is the course itself. That's going to be here under services and then subscription-based training. And that's where all the courses are, right? So if I've signed up for 25 and up, courses are here. If I've signed up for 97 and up, which is Accounting Business Academy, courses are all here. This is constantly evolving. Airtable is my newest obsession. And in another second, bandwidth is a little slow because I'm streaming video and doing all kinds of other wonderful things right now. But notice I've now begun to embed an Airtable database, which my expectation, my hope here is that this is going to make it still easier to navigate. So I'm building the entire course list in here. It's brand new, so there's not a lot in here yet. Here's a course guide. I did put in the entire 97 and up course in here, and I've got it organized in a way only Airtable can allow you to do. Over here, you have a view larger version link, so you can click on this so you can really focus on it. But check this out. So if I right-click any of these little arrows, I can collapse everything, right? That collapses the whole course. I can re-expand it, and here are the different sections of the course, right? So if you want to learn about creating content, you can expand, become a content creation machine, and it has each of the lessons with the link that you can click on, where you can go right into that lesson. The other cool thing about
this is so valuable, though, when you're stuck and you're like in the 11th hour and you're trying to figure something out and you want to go look and you've already, like we've talked about, this has helped me so many times. I love this. It's like a personal library.
Thank you.
I like how you organized it.
Well, you're talking about this specifically with Airtable, or you mean just the course in general?
Just the courses in general. Like when I want to do a deep dive on something and I haven't really done the due diligence myself, and I go to this, or you've gotten videos on different things, like I just go in there and there's my answer.
Right. And I think you're going to find this makes it even easier to find what you're looking for. That's
Yeah,
my
I
hope.
love it.
I'll look forward to getting feedback from people. But that's the beauty of this, because we have 2 calls every week in which the members give me direct feedback and they say, hey, you know what, Seth? I would love it if you could do this. And usually my answer is going to be, great, thank you for the feedback. I'm going to make that happen, right? Because it's, especially now, it's easy for me to do. When we have 1,000 members, so I don't know if we'll ever have 1,000 members. It would be amazing to have 1,000 members. That would mean I was making about $100,000 a month, right? And then I'll start teaching you how to build a subscription-based school. Because that was one of the other things, you know, I looked at what a lot of others in our, and also in other industries were doing, and all these people do these like 12-week programs or 6-week programs, and I get it, that's cool, but my thought was, no, business is an ongoing permanent thing. I want to create an ongoing permanent, constantly growing, constantly organic process where I can be nimble and pivot around things and say, and so if something in the landscape changes significantly, I don't have to rewrite a whole course. I just add some new content and say, here's where we go now, right? It's like this constant road that we go down, and we all go down it together. So over here, you can click on any one of these links to access the lesson. Of course, you can use your browser's Control F function. If you know you want to find the lesson on Yoast, you type Yoast. Here's how to use Yoast to optimize, right? Excuse me. And you can click on the link, and it takes you right into the lesson. Just beware, because anybody can access this table now. But if you aren't a member or you're not logged in, and you click on that link, you're going to get the bunny rabbit. Right? The bunny rabbit is something that came up in one of our 97 and up calls. It was just one of these random things, right? And so this is what you get if you're not signed in or if you haven't signed up. You get the bunny rabbit. And he's a very special bunny rabbit, right? He's the one who guides people onto the right path, right, Sarah? He gets us onto the right path. He says, buy now and you can sign up and you can get access immediately. And so
get that sound that go find it.
So this is how people can, you know, and your access to the courses is immediate. I'm usually pretty good about getting you invited into the Slack team within a few hours of when you've signed up, at the most 24 hours. In one case, somebody signed up actually while I was about to get on the plane and come home from Israel. Now, how rare is that? So I actually wrote her a quick email saying, hey, I'm traveling, so I have no access, so bear with me. Within the next 24 to 48 hours, I'll get you invited into the Slack. And, you know, there are people who sign up for 97 and up. One person recently told me, because I also I keep track of, like, who's been kind of joining our calls and who I haven't seen in a while. And a few days ago, I sent an email out to all the people I hadn't seen in a while. Mind you, a lot of marketers would be afraid to do this because their feeling would be, oh, I'm going to remind people that they're paying for a subscription that they're not using, and if I send an email like this, they're going to quit. I don't care about that. I don't want people to be signed up and paying me if they're not getting anything out of it. You know, that's my true, honest intention. So I didn't mind sending the email out. And a couple people told me, one person said, hey, I honestly just signed up to get all the webinars, right? Because the webinars, these ones I've been doing on Thursday, like beating up your balance sheet, and, you know, it's not what you use and how you use it. All these Thursday $47 webinars I've been doing, all included in 97 and up. I give everybody a coupon code, and they always get it for free. So this person said that they had signed up really just for that. But to them, because they knew they were going to probably want to pay for at least 2 a month, which is going to add up to about the 97 bucks. She said, it's worth it. I'll just pay the 97 bucks a month and I'll always get the webinars, you know, and those are downloads, you know, there's a download option there. So that's really the deal. If we go back to subscription-based training, this is where you'll find all the courses. It's also where you're going to sign up, in case you're wondering. And so we have all the courses. Here's Accounting Business Academy, my 97 and up project. So this is the one and only course that's only available to 97 and up. All the other courses are offered at $25 a month, right? And of course, 97 and up has access to everything, right? 17 hats, bookkeeping fundamentals with cloud accounting apps, business valuation analytics, which, by the way, is what we're going to be starting on this coming Tuesday. Is we're going to get into business analytics, financial statement analysis, ratio analysis. We did that about a year ago. Remember, Sarah?
Yeah.
But I got into some stuff that I didn't necessarily plan on getting into. It's just where things kind of took us that I even thought was pretty interesting, where we really analyzed how to build the equity on the balance sheet. And we learned some interesting things about things that you might think would increase the equity that actually don't. Right? Because when you really look at it from all sides, you realize that while you think you're increasing assets, you're also either increasing liabilities or depleting another asset at the same rate. So you really have to consider depreciation and interest and amortization before you consider whether or not what you're doing or what you're investing in, right? Because when I buy fixed assets, these are investing activities, whether or not I'm really going to be able to increase equity as a result. And that can help sway somebody, especially one of our clients, in a buying decision. Should they actually pay for this asset or not? Is it going to be worth it? You know?
Yeah, the timing of this is awesome for me, but I remember Carmen had such a great success story on this with you.
Really? Share it, because I don't remember.
We were doing this, and it just happened, the timing worked out, and she went to a client's office, and she was working with them, and she did the deeper dive. And I remember her jumping back on the call and saying it was just like the perfect, she had answers to the questions. She was helping them drive a little bit further deeper into, you know, the value of their company and what to look for. And it enhanced her skills at that moment too. So I do remember that because it was like spring of that year, and it was just diving in with you. So
that's awesome.
It was pretty neat. Yeah.
Yep, and those are my favorite sort of success stories with this, where people tell me that, where they can describe a very specific experience in which something that we did together helped them. And notice I don't take the credit. It's the whole group of us, really, that makes it what it is, and that makes it really special. So anyway, all of the courses are here. This is really a compilation of free stuff that was out there, but it was, you know, Mariette Martinez and I had done a number of webinars where we looked at the tax planning, and we created this Excel template around tax planning, and somebody had suggested, you know, it would be great to have it all in one place. So that's what I did. I compiled it all in one place, and now it's part of the,
that.
Yeah, that's right. I think you suggested it. That's right.
Yeah, I love it. That was I remember that. That was a fun talk.
Yeah, it was a fun series that Mariette did. Mariette's a member. She joins when she can.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to.
And of course, here's the option. So it's either 25, and so it says 197. Don't be scared off by that. Just ask me for the coupon code. I'll get it down to $97 a month for you again, because I had increased the price last year. So anybody who's on this call, for sure, just reach out to me, let me know. I'll give you the coupon code. It'll be $97 a month. And then we have this option here, which is basically a weekly one-on-one with me, including everything else in the program, where I will walk you through our whole 97 and up program. I will work with you to fill out and build the projections in the template, and of course help you with anything else you need, from building the financial plan for your business to increasing the accounting skills that'll boost your confidence, to doing anything you need to learn how to do where I've had the experience. It's like I always love to say, if I've had the experience, you're welcome to it. You just don't want my opinions on anything. So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll end with the infomercial and get back into any questions people might have. What can we do to help you improve your business today? Gina posted in the chat, did anyone hear Joe on Stacy's QB Radio free last night? Oh my God, Stacy, you really let him have it. You're running, scaling new heights, venue changes, bankrupt. Okay, go check that out. I honestly don't want to touch that subject here. I've been staying out of it intentionally, and I plan to continue to stay out of it. I'll keep my opinions to myself.
Stacy did not. She went into it, and she went into it with detail.
Mm-hmm. That is awesome. It's just not something I want to get into. I have worked hard at steering clear of drama, and I plan to keep it that way.
So Carmen Martinique is on Facebook chat, and she just concurs with what Sarah said and what you said, Seth.
Let's see. She says,
my memory serves me good.
She says, me? Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
Whatever.
She says, I told her to raise her value price to $100,000. And because actually one of the first things I did when I did my pricing, and by the way, there's a pricing course on here that walks you through my process for how to come up with your pricing. And it's very different than what the others teach. It's got a lot of overlap with value pricing, but my whole concept is different. In a nutshell, it's you price things based on what gets you excited to do the work. I don't care what the value is, right? Value means nothing to me. What matters to me is, am I going to get excited to get out of bed in the morning and do the work based on what I'm getting paid? If not, I'm going back to it. If yes, then I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to do it with a lot of zeal because I'm excited, because I'm getting paid so well to do what I'm doing, and I love doing it. right? That's the basic premise behind how I come up with the pricing. I give you several different ways of coming up with your pricing, right? And actually, when you go to the core business management in the cloud course, that's the 97 and up course, that first section walks you through setting up your prices as part of it. So, where was I? So one of the first things I showed, actually, I remember Christine Monahan, when she first joined, had said she got all excited because I showed her a plan where she could actually build a financial model around generating $200,000 a year in gross revenues. And she saw the way I laid it out for her that it was not impossible, that it was actually very much within reach. It was just a matter of laying out the plan and seeing it in black and white. I mean, again, going back to books like Think and Grow Rich, and if you want to read something like The Secret, which is actually very much based on what you learn reading Think and Grow Rich, but all these kind of books talk about this, how you can't just start a business and say, okay, I just want to get new clients and grow. You need to be a lot more specific than that. If you're vague about it like that, you're just going to find yourself wandering, right? And kind of going in circles and never really getting very far. If you're very specific as to the amount that you're going to make and very specific as to what you're going to give up in exchange for it, that's the premise of the very first layer of the foundation that you want to build when you're building a business. That's, as far as I'm concerned, what's required. And that's why I made it the first section of the course, so that we can go on this. And the cool thing about the group is that, if I may say so, the cool thing about the group is that because it's an intimate group, those who have taken the time to do it, all of whom, by the way, everyone who's taken the time to do it has come back to me at some point and said what a tremendous help it was, because it has, as part of the whole plan, a way of keeping you very focused, right? We start spending less time screwing around on Facebook because we become much more aware of what our goals are and whether or not at any given moment what we're doing is going to further those goals. Right? Mike Henninger's with us. He recently told me what a difference it made. It was funny. He said, now that I have some stuff to put in my template, it's actually working, right? So the point is, the act of doing it keeps you focused on it. But what it also is doing is, it gives us, in our intimate group, we have a place where we can share it. And so we can be accountable. So now it's sort of a mastermind group. Not sort of. It is a mastermind group, because Mike can come in and say, hey, you know what? My goal this month was to do $20,000 in revenues. I only did $15,000. What do I do? Do I increase my goal? Do I decrease it? Do I keep it the same? And then we can also take a deep look, and we do this. We'll get a focused, almost like a one-on-one session where everybody else is a fly on the wall, although they're always welcome to join in and speak. But we'll make the focus about one person for the sake of illustration and help that person figure out how they can do better to achieve their goals next month, right? Or if I exceeded my goals this month, do I raise the bar, or do I keep it the same, or what do I do? We get into all that kind of analysis, and I love doing that. I feel like that's where we can provide the greatest value, and it's not something I could ever do in a public forum, but everybody's comfortable doing it in the private group because, again, it's private, it's intimate, and even though the calls are recorded and available to anybody who ever joins, everybody seems comfortable thus far that we're not going to attract in any members that we're going to be worried about as far as, who's going to eventually be able to see that information, even on a recording much later on. So it's great that way. I love the fact that I've created something that gives me the opportunity to do this with people. So Carmen posted she's coming back to 97. She downgraded to 25 because she didn't have the time as much. Part of what happens, unfortunate or not, I look at it as a very fortunate thing. I look at it as something that indicates that what we're doing is working, is that some people get so busy with the clients that they now have to work on that they downgrade to 25 because they still want access to the courses and they still want to be a part of it, but they don't have the time to take advantage of all the stuff that 97 Up offers. So to me, that's a win. I don't look at it as a bad thing, even though because again, it's not really about the money for me. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. I love to make money, but what's more important to me is really helping people succeed. So that's what it is. So my plan is to do these free Wi-Fi 97 Up calls like once a month, just as a refresher, just as a reminder, quite frankly, in hopes that more people will be interested in joining, because I would love to see this thing grow even bigger. We have a really good, solid core group right now. I'd almost be content to just leave it where it is, but of course I'm, interested in growing it and helping more people, and I love seeing what's evolving with our group here and seeing how it's becoming bigger than me, where, people like Sarah are in there all the time helping others completely free of charge, free of any profit motive. It's just there to help because we all help each other, and that's just how it works. So,
like Mariette says, caring is sharing.
Yep, sharing is caring. Caring is sharing. Sharing, caring. Just eat some M&Ms.
Just do it reverse. I do everything in reverse, and that works.
Right. All right, so we'll do this like once a month. We have more great webinars and guests coming up over the next few weeks. I assume Gina is doing hers later today. It looks like we've lost her. She had to jump off the call.
Oh.
But check out SBAA on Facebook. She has hers at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, right? 2:30 or
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock.
I don't know where I got 2:30 from.
That's what it used to be.
Oh, she changed
that
it.
too?
Okay.
Oh.
So it's
Okay.
2 Pacific, 5 Eastern.
We do a half an hour just chatting amongst ourselves, and then we record for the second half.
Got it.
So then
Very
we're starting at 5 Eastern. So
Yeah, it's half hour recorded, and the other time is just offline with talking about the good stuff.
So you can talk smack about people.
Oh, I'm joining.
Especially about the clients.
Right. Well, very good. So join later with Gina and company. And I will see you all around on the web. If you have any questions about 97 Up, please feel free to reach out to me and ask. I would love to have you if you're not already in it. And look forward to next week. What are we doing next week? Next week, I'll tell you who's on. I have some really cool people coming on in the next few weeks. By the way, you can always go onto my website if you're looking to see what's next. It's also under podcasts. And when you go into the Zoom in with Seth David, then this is always the first post. I keep just editing it and updating the date, so it's always on top. And you can click here to register for the upcoming Zoom in with Seth David and friends. And down here we have, this is today's on the 13th. The 20th, we have Fundira Town Hall with Meredith Wood. That's going to be a lot of fun. I love Meredith Wood. I actually can't wait to have this chat with her and all of you next Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific. So
That'll be nice.
don't forget to register for that. It's going to be fun. Meredith is awesome. I would love to have her with us every week. That would be amazing. I would pay for that.
Join the group. You won't regret it.
Yeah. So, Jesse, will I see you later? Are you coming to the other office today?
Yeah, it'll be afternoon by the time I get there, but yeah, I'll see you there.
Cool. I'll see you there. See you all around the web.